have to admit, I have not been thinking much about the long game recently. I've been very much in the present and the very near future. The time frame between now and the end of the pandemic, whatever that means. Maybe those first few weeks or months afterward. And I think part of this is the depth of unknowing, because what is after going to look like? And what does after mean? And when will after come? And how will it get here? But I also think that I haven't been thinking about the long game because the present and the near future are overwhelming. And I sort of forgot that there is a long game. That was until I read today's psalm. And it felt like standing in a big field in the middle of nowhere at night and watching the stars come out. Truth be told, I had forgotten about watching the stars come out as well. There's too many lights in the city and travel is too hard with a pandemic and a baby. But when the psalmist says to God, "For 1,000 years in your sight are like yesterday when it is past, or like a watch in the night," there is suddenly perspective. Like seeing how small we are in comparison to the night sky, except even better in this case because of the time warp we've been in through since March or longer, is all put into perspective. This too will pass. It is incomprehensibly bad. It is incredibly hard. It cannot be trivialized. And this too shall pass. There is still a long game out there, and God at least is still playing it. And that helps me breathe a little bit deeper. God is still working in the kingdom because God never stops working on the kingdom. Despite all of the intersecting crises of this moment, God keeps working towards a world of abundance, a fair distribution of love. And God will win no matter the setbacks. In the midst of this, remembering to breathe a little bit deeper and take some of my fears for the moment and put them down. And remember that God is playing a long game. My friend Jenna, who works at Sky Lake, posted this picture on Facebook of my favorite place on earth. And it too feels like the psalm does. For 1,000 years in your sight are like yesterday when it is past, or like a watch in the night. It puts my fears, frustrations, and even hopes in context. There is so much beauty, and there is so much peace, even now. The gospel also serves as a much-needed reminder speaking into these difficult days. The teaching here, of course, is not unique to Christianity or to Jesus. It is near universal in the world's religions. You may know the story of two great rabbis, Shammai and Hillel, in the century before Jesus. This is a story about them. One famous account in the Talmud tells about a Gentile who wanted to convert to Judaism. This happened not infrequently. And this individual stated that he would only accept Judaism if a rabbi would teach him the entire Torah while he, the prospective convert, stood on one foot. First he went to Shammai, who, insulted by this ridiculous request, threw him out of the house. The man did not give up and went to Hillel. This gentle sage accepted the challenge, and he said, "What is hateful for you, do not do to your neighbor. This is the whole of the Torah. The rest is the explanation of this. Go and study it." This is the key to a life of faith. Love. Nothing more or less, Nothing complicated. Love. Loving God and neighbors, I even think they're two sides of the same coin. We can break it down, we can expound on it, but at the end it is just love. And there is plenty of commentary on what it means, which is good, because it turns out to be a little bit more challenging than it sounds. One piece of commentary that has been particularly meaningful to me comes from the Buddhist tradition. From Buddhism, I have learned that loving kindness flows from compassion. And compassion has to start with yourself. Then it can flow to a loved one, and then loved ones, and then known ones, and then even unknown ones. Because most people I know, myself included, aren't actually all that good at self-compassion, this is my suggestion for you this week. That you treat yourself with loving kindness and compassion. And because this may sound strange, I'm going to give you a few examples to make it more concrete. If your self-narrative says, "Self, you are so lazy, there is so much to do, get up and do it," self-compassion might sound like, "Self, you seem worn down. Clearly you need a few moments before anything else is asked of you. What might make those moments more refreshing?" Or if your self-narrative says, "Self, you were really mean to that person you spoke to. You are a failure at basic human dignity." I assume self-narratives are pretty mean. Self-compassion might sound like, "Self, that went really poorly, didn't it? I know I meant to do better and I didn't. Let's look at what went wrong and see if we can find a turning point for next time." Or if your self-narrative says, "Self, for Pete's sake, stop doom scrolling. What is wrong with you? You know better." Self-compassion may sound like, "Self, it is a scary time, and I know you are looking for answers and hope. However, refreshing the news or scrolling social media doesn't have it, does it? It would be nice to feel like there is more control in the world, but alas, my power is only so big. What do I have control over that I can use now? Hydration? A nap? Deep breaths? A walk? Let's find another way to respond to anxiety that helps more." So that sort of thing. That's my challenge. That this week, once a day, you stop yourself and find some self-compassion. And if you are superbly good at this, yay, go you if you are. Then, and only then, you can try having compassion for one other loved one every day too. It's really funny, but loving our neighbors starts with loving ourselves. And compassion for the world starts with letting God's compassion reign in our hearts. So, dear ones, go and love with compassion. Amen.